It honestly feels like just yesterday, Eric Bledsoe was the starting point guard for a Milwaukee Bucks team that had the best record in the NBA. Well, today, he's playing in China. Now, he's managed a really solid basketball career. He spent one season at Kentucky as part of one of the most famous college teams of all time before being drafted with the 18th overall pick in 2010 by the Oklahoma City Thunder, but shortly after, traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, he actually got off to a really slow start in his career. In his second season, he was averaging just 3 points a game. Things didn't really uptrend till ahead of his fourth season when he was traded to the Phoenix Suns. In his first year there, he would average 18 points, and throughout his 4 seasons there, he managed to cement himself as one of the most well-rounded point guards in the league, but eventually, the lack of team success got to him, and he requested a trade. Then at the start of the 2018 season, the now 28-year-old was traded to the Bucks. He spent 3 seasons there, but the story just seemed to be the same year in and year out. An incredible player to have for the regular season, but a player that just seemed to consistently bring them down in the playoffs. Considering the struggles, the Bucks jumped on the opportunity to trade for Jrue Holiday. In the process, Bledsoe was sent to the Pelicans, where we quickly started to see his career decline. He averaged an inefficient 12 points, then the following season went to the Clippers, where it continued to go downhill. Leading up to this season, the opportunities had just dried up, so he decided to go overseas and join the Shanghai Sharks in China. Now, after seeing another former NBA player, JimmerRange, who didn't experience nearly the same league success, go to that exact same team and tear it up, averaging 27 a game, I thought we would see Bledsoe putting up some crazy numbers. And while he's still playing pretty well, it's not necessarily the domination you would expect. He's averaging 17 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. One of the most well-known players over the last few seasons is also playing in China. Now, he isn't necessarily known for his ability on the court, having scored just 1 more point in his career than Kobe Bryant did in a singular game, but clearly for his insane height, standing at 7 feet 7 inches tall. We're talking about Taco Fall. Taco's managed a pretty big following since his days in high school, going viral for just being unfairly big. Now, he wasn't a super sought-after prospect, but he still ended up playing at a pretty decently sized program in UCF, where I think for the most part, he exceeded expectations. By his senior season, he was averaging 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks a game. That season, UCF made it to the NCAA tournament, where they actually just barely fell short to a Duke team that featured Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish. But given today's team's ability to exploit players like him, most weren't sure if there was going to be any opportunity whatsoever, but following going undrafted, the Celtics actually decided to sign them to their summer league team, and he eventually landed a 2-way deal. Now, he would stick around the league for 3 more seasons, but he appeared in just 37 games with relatively irrelevant production, but we did get a glimpse of what he might be capable of against a more favorable matchup, as in the 4 G League games he played, he averaged 23 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Then ahead of this season, he would sign a 1-year deal in China, which I thought would be a really solid fit. I don't think many realize that you can actually shell out a really lucrative career playing somewhere like China, with some players on multi-million-dollar deals. So far, he's played pretty well. He's averaged 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks. If you've ever heard Taco Fall in interviews or anything like that, you know he's a really easy player to root for, so I'm really hoping we get to see more from him in the future. Today's video is sponsored by Manscaped.com, the global men's lifestyle brand that's disrupting the beard market. It's time to toss out your bulky trimmer and upgrade to Manscaped's latest innovation, the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. The star of the show is the beard trimmer, which features a powerful 7200 RPM motor and a titanium-coated blade that can cut through the thickest hairs in a single stroke. I think the coolest feature is the zoom wheel that lets you cut up to 20 different lengths with a single blade. The trimmer is waterproof, cordless, and rechargeable. The Pro Kit also comes with a bunch of other stuff like shampoo, conditioner, oil, balm, a case, and several other accessories. Whether this is your first trimmer or an upgrade, Manscaped is here to help. And if you go to the link in the description and use code JIMMER at checkout, they're going to give you 20% off plus free shipping. Thank you, Manscaped, for sponsoring today's video. Now, possibly the most talked about former NBA player playing overseas is Dwight Howard, the first overall pick, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 8-time All-Star, and NBA champion. Now, it's not really much of a surprise to see Howard now playing overseas. Despite at one point being one of the best players on the planet, we saw his career go down rather quickly due to a combination of a changing game and injuries piling up. Really, after his stint in Houston, it was the same story, bouncing around the league as a low-end starter or role player, but he surprisingly bought into that role much better than I think everyone expected. I think that was most evident in his role in the Lakers winning the title back in 2020. Now, we last saw Howard in the league just last season, again with the Lakers, where he averaged 6 points and 6 rebounds, but following the season, there were just no more NBA opportunities left, and he decided to sign with the Leopards in the Taiwan League. Now, typically, they wouldn't have the ability to sign a player with a name recognition like Howard, as the league caps the salary of foreign players at $200,000, but they actually made an exemption for Howard, who's reportedly making over $1 million for this season. So far, regardless of his age, Howard is just unfair for this level of competition. He made his debut putting up 38 points, 25 rebounds, and going viral for jacking up 10 threes. Now, he only made 2 of those, but it was fun to watch Howard just enjoying himself out there. He's been dealing with a knee injury since the start of the season, so he hasn't played too much, only in 8 games, but there, he's averaged 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists, shooting 61% from the field. At 37 years old, it's hard to say how much more we'll see from Howard on the court, but I wouldn't mind seeing some more Dwight Howard 3-point mixtapes. Another player it's great to see having success outside of the NBA is Thon Maker. Maker first went viral back in high school due to his crazy combination of insane handles and size, standing at 7 feet tall. He then would get drafted right out of high school, going with the 10th overall pick in 2016 to the Milwaukee Bucks. And while he still received a lot of praise for the upside he was showing, with the Bucks becoming more and more of a contender, there just wasn't a big role for a developing player like him. He was traded in 2018, then bounced around the league for a couple seasons, but eventually decided to go overseas last season. He played just 2 games in Israel, then ahead of this season, decided to join players like Jeremy Lin and Eric Bledsoe in China. Here, he's really gotten the chance to show off his skill set. He's averaging 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks. He's legitimately one of the best players in that league right now. With him just being 25 years old, I really hope this is just the start of a long and successful career overseas, as he's always been an extremely fun player to watch. Next, we've got another former NBA player playing in China, and that's Quinn Cook, who's having a pretty weird season. I assumed that he was just absolutely tearing it up, as a couple months ago on Twitter, I saw a 50-point performance from him where he made 12 threes, barely hitting the net, missing just 6 shots the entire game. He looked flat out unfair, but to my surprise, the 2-time NBA champion has actually really struggled outside of that one outing. His next best game has been just 13 points. On the season, he's averaging less than 12 points and 3 assists, shooting 33% from the field and from 3. I'm not sure what's going on here, but these are worse numbers than what we saw him put up in the NBA. Back in 2018, he was averaging 10 points, shooting 44% from 3. So this isn't a player dominating overseas, but I thought it was worth mentioning some more context surrounding that viral 50-point outing. Now, all the players we've mentioned so far have either been playing in China or Taiwan, but these leagues just don't have a great reputation for competition level. The best basketball outside of the US is in Europe. So let's take a look at some former players playing really well over there, but keep in mind, the game there is much different, so we need to have a very different statistical standard. I think one of the best examples of a failed NBA career, but still incredible basketball career, is Shane Larkin. After an incredible few seasons at Miami, he would go with the 18th overall pick in the 2013 draft. He stuck around the league for a couple seasons, averaging just 5 points and 3 assists, shooting 42% from the field and 34% from 3. Standing at just 6 foot, not much leeway was given to him, so he decided to go to Europe, and it just seemed to be a match made in heaven. He's become one of the consensus top players in Europe. Since 2020, he's averaged 13 points and 5 assists, shooting 39% from 3. Not jaw-dropping numbers compared to what we're used to in both college and the NBA, but the European game, as we said, is very different. Right now, the leading scorer in the EuroLeague is averaging less than 19 a game. He's led his team to back-to-back EuroLeague titles and has pulled off a page full of accolades over the last few seasons. What I think is so fascinating about a player like Larkin is a lot of people are under the impression that it's NBA or bust, especially from a financial standpoint. And while on the high end, that's undoubtedly true. For someone like Larkin, there's actually more money to be made overseas. If he was still in the league, there's no question he'd be on a league minimum salary, which for his experience would be right around $2 million. Right now, his current contract in the Turkish league is 2 years, $7 million. This was extremely eye-opening to me, and I have a strong feeling European basketball is going to see some major growth over the next few years. Now, it's really rare to see a player decide to go overseas when a solid NBA salary is on the table, but that's exactly what we saw Nikola Mirotic do back in 2020. He was coming off a season averaging 15 points and 7 rebounds on really solid efficiency between the Pelicans and Bucks. There is no question, had he decided to stay in the NBA, a really solid payday was heading his way, but he actually decided to get closer to home and signed with Barcelona. Now, at the time I was confused, but after seeing that he received a $26 million 3-year contract, making him the highest paid non-NBA player in the world, I think it makes a lot more sense. It's hard to project what his next NBA contract would have been, but I don't think it would have been too much more than that. Now, it's no shocker, considering that he's still in his early 30s, that he has dominated since getting to Europe. He won the Spanish League MVP and Finals MVP in his first season, and he's fresh off winning EuroLeague MVP this past year. Now, these are far from the only former NBA players that are playing overseas, but are some of the more notable names are just guys with interesting stories. If you guys like the content, I can bring you more like this. With all that said, hope you guys have a great day, and peace.